Now we know. Hi everyone, well here we are at the November edition of New England Compact Disc and Record Expo, sponsored by the Randolph Music Center as always, here in beautiful downtown Dedham at the Holiday Inn. I'm with my two very good friends, Carl Fitch and James Denton Jr. Jim Denton is wrapping up a very successful Boston Ghost Tour that he wrote and assembled and facilitates. They are still doing special tours, and if you're interested, go to bostonghosttour.com. I hope I got that right. How's that?
Hi, well, this is Ed Bowen from WATD back here at the music convention. CDs, records, we love the old vinyl. Vinyl is final. And I'm sitting with a pal that I've known for a long, long time. Pat Benti, nice to have you here. You had Elvis on the run for a while there. Are you kidding me?
We had a great time. We had a great time, and of course we used to go on tour with Dennis Yost,
right?
The late Dennis Yost,
Gene
my good
Hughes.
friend Gene Hughes, Pat Upton of Spiral Staircase.
That's right.
We had a great time over the years.
Oh yeah.
I loved it. I miss coming to the record conventions. And,
you haven't been at one of these for years.
Many years. And by the way, January will begin my 40th year in the music business. So
is that right?
I think that's kind of interesting. Can I give a plug to one show that we're doing? I'm doing a show with Patty Page in 3 weeks.
Oh, right.
At the Waltham, at the Regal Theater in Waltham, and
Excellent.
that's on a Sunday, November 21st at 2 p.m. And of course, Patty's a legend. Probably one of the top female singers
oh, yeah,
of
definitely.
all time.
Yeah.
I believe she was named Best Female Singer 5 times during the 50s.
Wow, that's
amazing. And tomorrow, I believe, is her birthday.
Really?
She'll be 83 tomorrow. There's a lot of great performers that are still performing. Look at Engelbert and Tom Jones are over in their 70s. Sorry, Frankie. Frankie Valli is about 76. And there's still Tony Bennett just turned 83 years old. Sounds great.
It doesn't stop them.
No, Johnny
It
Mathis
doesn't
is
stop them at all.
75. So they're still out there. They're still performing. And yeah, let's go out and support them and see them. So yeah, we got to do a show next year and do something for these folks.
That's right.
Can go on and on. I don't want to do a show called Rock and Roll Heaven. All right?
No, you'll be there soon enough.
Yeah. It seemed like, I've worked with Roy, as you remember, back in the 80s, and Gene Pitney. That's why I wear my Roy Orbison shirt, because I loved Roy. Again, Gene Pitney, the Righteous Brothers, the list was endless.
Yeah.
And we had a great time during
We've
those
all
years.
worked with so many wonderful people over the years, and it's
You
so
certainly
great.
did. We met a lot of great people at the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and just from being in the business. So it's been a great time, and
It ain't over yet, pal.
No, it ain't over yet. So we had a great time. Joe Viglione, known you for many years, buddy. When we used to do shows with a lot of the early groups in the 80s, and Joe's a great guy, and so I want to say thank you, Joe.
Hello, dealers. We have a new addition to the want list. We're looking for a CD with David Gilmour on an island. I think he's with the Professor and Marianne, no? David Gilmour on an island. If that sounds at all familiar, we'll get you in rehab.
I don't know.
This is me, Gary Summers, King of Pop Culture here, and I'm inviting you to the 2nd annual Rock and Soul Holiday Concert at the Regent Theater in Arlington, Massachusetts on Sunday, December 19th. Be there or be square. This is scenes from last year's show. Last year featured people like Barrence Whitfield, Willie Alexander, Sarah Borges, Eli Paperboy Reed, Ernie and the Automatics, Jenny D and the Delinquents, and a cast of thousands. Okay, hundreds. Okay, maybe about 50. But there was a lot of great music, and you missed it. Don't miss this year's show, Sunday, December 19th, at the Regent Theater in Arlington, Massachusetts, the 2nd annual Rock and Soul Holiday Concert. Be there or be so square. Check to regenttheater.com for ticket details. REGENT THEATRE, or go to my website, allcollectors.com. That's ALLCOLLECTORS.com. Barrett's Whitfield.
Is that bizarre? But he's a friend of mine. I never knew this existed. It's got Sonny, Spanky, and our gang. And what's really weird is I represent Spanky and our gang and Bobby Hebb, and he was their producer, and it's not through him. I know him through them, not the other way around.
Did Marty Balin ever come out with the memoir that he was writing? Did he ever...
No. No, Craig Fenton wrote a book, and Jeff Tamarkin wrote a book. And Craig then wrote a book on the Starship. Have you seen the stars tonight?
Okay.
So he's got 2 big books out, and Craig wants to do a Marty Balin book. It's up to Marty and Craig. He should do it.
I hope he does. What did you think of the airplane book that came out a couple of years ago, Got a Revolution?
Yeah, that's Jeff Tamarkin's book. I interviewed Jeff. Well, I interviewed Jeff Tamarkin on Got a Revolution. It's in here. And I interviewed Craig Fenton. So the 2 biographers are actually interviewed, and you can see them on the bonus tracks.
Oh, really?
Isn't that wild? Oh, this is a real ultimate. Maybe we should have put a little more down here. Includes interviews with, Jeff Tamarkin, Craig Fenton, the 2 authorities on the airplane. Do you know who F.A.M.E Mohawk is?
No.
She wrote a song for Cyndi Lauper called Change of Heart. Mm-hmm. So Marty cut a song of hers. She hangs out with the Grateful Dead.
Okay.
F.A.M.E Mohawk.
Yeah.
So I saw her on Facebook and I said, hey, I produced Marty Balin live at the Esplanade and he's doing one of your songs. She goes, which song? I said, Shaping the Night. So I just mailed it to her last night. She gave me her address. Is that wild?
Yeah.
So she wrote with the Grateful Dead, and her and Marty want to write together, so they almost got together years ago. So now that she's on my Facebook, they're probably going to be writing again. Is that wild? I mean, it's just amazing. But she's always been known in those Grateful Dead circles.
Oh, yeah. Really?
As for a Mohawk.
I remember it was like New Year's Eve, so the process stayed.
Well, here's what I was going to tell you. Pat Upton.
Welcome to Visual Radio. We're here on November 7th at the Holiday Inn for the New England's, original New England Compact Disc and Record Expo, and Pat Benti is here with me. Pat Benti of F.A.M.E. Is that correct?
F.A.M.E, that's right. Actually, I was the executive director and co-founder of F.A.M.E. along with Mary Wilson and 2 of my dearest friends that have passed away, Dennis Yost of the Classics 4 and Gene Hughes, who used to be the lead singer of the Casinos. We formed F.A.M.E. in 1998.
And it is so sad that so many people are passing on. Wilson Pickett, James Brown, everyone's just passing on, and it's a very strange time, Pat.
Well, the list is endless, and one of the reasons why when we put F.A.M.E. together was to recognize all of these artists, why we still have them. Later on, Mary and I started what was called the National Treasure Awards. Because when people pass away, whether you're an actor, a director, no matter what, they always say we lost another national treasure. So Mary and I started National Treasure Awards, and we've given out the National Treasure Awards to such great entertainers. Levi Stubbs of the Four Tops, before he passed away, we were able to give him.
Oh, nice.
This year I gave one to Benny King, Tony Orlando. We presented one to Pat Upton of Spiral Staircase for his song of More Today Than Yesterday. Herb Reed of the Platters, Kyle Gardner of the Drift of the Coasters, who, by the way, is still with us, but Kyle's 85 years old, and he's not doing well like so many of those great R&B artists.
How old is my friend Little Joe Cook?
Joe will be 89 this year.
See, I keep thinking he's stuck at 82. He's 80. I can't conceive of it. Joe's a dear friend, and his birthday's in December, but we
December
usually
28th.
We usually have the parties in March. I don't know why.
Yeah, yeah. And Joe, I talk to Joe every week.
Oh, good. Tell him, please tell him I said hi.
And he gets mad at me. He says, "Man, you haven't called me in a month. You know, it's Joe. I just talked to you yesterday." "No, are you sure?" But I love Joe, and Joe's another one of people that are still out there. Joe recorded Peanuts in 1957, and he tells you I recorded it in A flat, and he still sings it in A flat today. You know, so how many people can actually do that? There are not many people that can perform their songs that they did.
And he's doing the Symphony Hall thing, right?
He just did a show last week. Where the heck was he? He was up in. He did a show recently, and I can't remember where he was, but he does a show with Bowser down at. He did it down in Cohasset this past August, and we love Joe Cook. And his daughters were the Sherrys, if you remember them.
Oh yeah, of course.
In the early '60s. So a lot of history with Joe, and many stories. I can go on and on and on with Joe, as we could with so many people in rock and roll that have since left us. You know, my number one guy was Roy, and I loved Roy. I did a couple of shows with Roy when we were the house band up at Hampton Beach Casino.
Oh, wow.
Roy was great. Righteous Brothers, Gene Pitney. The list was endless of great singers. So, like I said, this year I did the Benny King show. Then I did Tony Lando's 50th anniversary show. And Tony is, man, you talk about history. There's a guy you want to get on your show. And there's Tony. Still looks great and sounds great.
If you go to allmusic.com, I reviewed this album. I gave it a great review because it's a really interesting concept album.
I think Tony would be a great guy to have on your show. Bottom line is, he's a great guy. A year and a half ago, he toured Afghanistan with his band, and he called me the day he got back. He says, "Benti, I can't believe what I just experienced in Afghanistan with all these young kids." So he's a wonderful human being.
Bobby was like that. Bobby was a very generous, giving man, and sweetheart of a guy, you know, and it's just a real shame, but...
Of course, how many times has Sonny been recorded, the song Sonny?
About 1,000 times now, because we did a BBC special, song lines, you know, they take a song.
Sure.
So we put that together, and Bobby and I and Jerry Ross spoke on that, the producer.
Yeah.
Jerry Ross produced Sonny and Spanky and Our Gang. So I just found this like very strange, like Ray Conniff version of Jerry Ross's hits by Jerry Ross.
Came out around 70.
Well, he got those hits out of Holland.
Really?
He had the Dutch sound happening, Little Green Bag. So Jerry brought them over for his Colossus label, I'm Your Venus.
To Cayman. Wow.
And Vinnie Bell's on guitar. So Jerry and I will be working on this Bobby Hebb box set, along with Eric, Bobby's business manager, and we're doing a 5-disc set on Bobby Hebb.
Bobby was a great, you knew him personally, so he was a great guy. I got to meet him a couple of times, and very humble and just a down-to-earth guy who just happened to have one of the best songs of all time, Standard. You talk about a standard, Sonny was certainly a standard.
But you know that Bobby also wrote the Lou Rawls hit, there's Lou Rawls right there, A Natural Man.
Did he really?
Yeah, he and Sandy Barron, the actor, co-wrote that. Sandy wrote the lyrics, Bobby wrote the music.
You don't know. So Bobby lived in Nashville during those years?
No, he lived in New Jersey in those years, moved up to Salem, around 78? We corresponded in the 80s, but we met in 95. And then we did a lot of stuff together from 95 till, you know.
Great song, great song. I tend to lean towards people that I got to know over the years. Of course, one of my favorite songs is More Today Than Yesterday by Pat Upton. Pat just turned 70. Just like Little Joe Cook, he sings More Today Than Yesterday in the same key he wrote it in 40 years ago.
He's great.
Can go on and on and on with these great people, and Tommy Rowe, and of course, I'm glad to see he's coming back.
Well, we don't know if it's a comeback or if he's just doing the Beatles convention.
Maybe I got to try to get down there.
So Eric Taros is doing the Beatles movie.
He's doing it on Suffolk Downs, if I'm correct.
Right.
Documentary. Eric interviewed me thinking, because I was from East Boston, I went to see the Beatles at Suffolk Downs, which correct me if I'm not, what's the date? August 18th, 1966. I says, Eric, I wasn't there. But here's what happened. The next day being Friday, I used to go bowling in East Boston. And I went bowling, went with a friend of mine, and I lived in East Boston on Chelsea Street. So my friend says, Pat, walk me, back in those days, halfway home. I said, all right, I'll walk you to Santapio's Pizza. So we had to cross the Sumner Tunnel.
Okay.
And I saw a couple of buddies of mine. They said, what are you guys doing here? They said, well, the Beatles are coming out. So we waited at this little island that's still there. The Beatles came out. They stopped their limo, and we met the Beatles at around 11:30, 11:45 that morning. We met the Beatles. I didn't see them at Suffolk Downs, but I met them in East Boston.
Wow.
So Eric gave me a picture 5 minutes after I met them of the Beatles getting out of the limo, and you can see Northeast Airlines in the back at the airport.
And you were there.
And I saw them 5 minutes earlier, less than 5 minutes earlier, because they were already in East Boston. And I have those 3 pictures on my wall with the ticket stubs, but I didn't see the Beatles.
You know who opened, who played with them?
It's a great trivia question.
Barry and the Remains.
There were 6 or 7 people.
Well, there was the Circle.
The Circle, Barry and the Remains, Bobby Hebb, the Ronettes.
We want to have Tony Orlando on. We want to have Mary Wilson. I love Mary Wilson. I've spoken to her a few times.
Great stories just with those 2 people.
Yeah.
You can have 2 hours because of all the Motown stories with Mary that she has, and Tony can tell you all about the 1650 building on Broadway and all the great singers that came out
When I go
there.
by it, I would touch it.
The Brill Building, right?
There were
just
2
go
buildings. There was a Brill in 1650.
Okay.
So Facebook
Yep.
is connecting people again. Marty's not on the web. He doesn't want to be on the web. But I'm on the web, and now he's like, oh, you love to work with Ezra.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I think it is cool. It reconnected me with some people when I went to college at Boston Conservatory of Music back in '8. We went many years ago, and I. People
You went to the
contacted me.
conservatory.
It was me, Eddie Mecca, from the big ragout of Vernon Shirley. Another great actor who played Lionel on The Jeffersons, Damon Evans. So we were all part of this young wannabes. They were there to be great actors, and I was going to college at that time to study music and get in the music business.
You've done a lot of contributions, Pat, to the music scene. Fame is very important, keeping the integrity of the names. It's such a nebulous thing, and people don't think twice about just using. There's a guy calling himself Johnny Ray. His name's John Nicastro. He was in the band Viper, and he refuses to. And I go, maybe I should just call myself Ed Ames.
Call yourself Ed Ames and sing, "My cup runneth over." No, you got to get that hatchet done. The 2 biggest tours, I think, next year, and you're going to see one of them happen. The Rascals are going to get together for the first time. All of them. All the Rascals and the Supremes. And I think that would be a great way, because you know what? They're getting up there right now. And it would be great to see both of those groups out there next year, commemorating 40 years, 45 years of rock and roll history. That's what I'd like to see happen. Will it happen? I don't know. Only time will tell.
Together? The 2 reunions together?
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? That would be nice, because we can't, they really aren't, we have one Top left, one Temptation left, there are not too many of the Motown. Sadly, I call it the tragedy of Motown, because we lost so many people in Motown due to whatever the causes were. There seems to be some type of a hex on Motown artists.
Well, no. I think it's just that, the age thing.
Well,
You
a lot of them died real young. And some of them, like Marvin Gaye, was killed. And so I call it the tragedy of Motown.
When you have a label that big, there's going to be. Here I am defending Motown, but when you have a label that big, it's going to happen.
And the room was no bigger than this. Hitsville was.
Barry's genius. There's no denying Barry's genius.
No, it was just great. The stories Mary tells me, which just incredible stories.
And you know,
I
Paul
think they need to come
Justman,
to her.
Seth Justman's brother, Paul Justman, did Standing in the Shadows of Motown.
Yep.
The guy who did the Jay Giles videos did the great Standing in the Shadows of Motown.
There are probably a number of reasons. One other thing is, to me, like Darlene Love, who was one of the greatest singers of all time.
No question.
All time. She was the voice for Phil Spector. And she's been nominated.
I mean,
the
He's
last
a
3 or
Rebel
4
is one of the
years.
most amazing records
Her
in
Christmas
history.
song that she does every year on.
All Alone at Christmas I love as well, from Home Alone 3.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
She was the voice of Phil Spector, and this is her 4th year she's been nominated, and for 4 years she hasn't got in yet.
Hey, Tommy James and the Shondells, are they in it?
No, they're not. And
We just interviewed Tommy for the 3rd time.
one of my favorite songs was Hanky Panky, and their follow-up, don't tell me what their follow-up was, because I remember buying it, and I think I was the only one on my street that bought it. You're looking for a loving man, say I am. Am I right?
Say I Am was the next
Say
record.
I am. That was their follow-up to it. It barely charted, but me, being a 16-year-old who loved garage bands, my favorite garage bands were Tommy James, Dino, Desi, and Billy, and a group that I loved, Syndicate of Sound.
Oh, nice.
Great song called "Hey Little Girl," and they were my favorite garage bands back then. I bought all their albums, all their 45s. Loved them. So "Say I Am" was a great song that came out after.
And you're standing where we interviewed Multi of the Barbarians.
He's a great guy. Another great garage
I
band.
helped Multi when the Tammy show came out on Shout Factory.
Well, I really enjoyed this whole.
We're with Pat Benti here at the original New
Thank you,
England
Joe. I appreciate
Compact
it.
Disc and Record Expo, and you got to come back in February.
Please call me. Let's keep in touch on Facebook.
Well, we're
You're
going
a
to
great
Facebook.
guy.
That's what we do.
You're a good guy, man. Also, can I tell you something? My son has a new song coming out called. He's got a group called Hard, Haard, and it's a Boston-based band. And the name of his song is called "Park the Car in Harvard Yard." He now owns a trademark to park the car.
Whoa.
So maybe he might be someone you might want to interview. You'd find him a fascinating interview and music person.
We have about 450 hours of this TV show
Yeah.
with Ray Manzarek, Felix Cavalieri, Margaret Cho. But we also have 40 or 50 hours with like Harry Sandler of the Orpheus,
Sure.
Willie Loco
Sure,
Alexander,
other local
Dee Dee
bands.
Stewart,
Great
Andy Pratt.
musicians.
They're all on visual radio. So I have about 40 hours.
please
And now I
consider
have
him.
Pat Benti. He's always welcome to.
Thank you.
We're in Winchester. Jay's in Haverhill.
Yep.
I'm in Winchester. I also tape in Winthrop.
And I'm in East Boston.
Yeah.
Hey, come over East Boston a couple of times. You know what I mean?
So
Bully Primo.
we'll be in touch about it. Sure. Hey, thanks,
Thank you
Pat.
so much. You're a gentleman. Thank you.
Good to
thank
see you.
Great, man. Thank
All right.
you.